I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022 to order. Clerk, could we please have roll call?
11 present, 1 absent, and a note to the viewers of the stream that due to technical difficulties, we will not be able to show the vote screen tonight.
Thank you. So 11 present, 1 absent. Please note that Commissioner Anderson is absent from tonight's meeting and is excused. Commissioner Sorich, could you lead us in the prayer and the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Fellow Commissioners, Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which will greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens.
Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve the minutes that occurred at the August 10th special meeting and the August 17th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Motion passes. Moving on to items not addressed on the agenda tonight. I don't think we have any. So we will move on to the Chief Executive's report. I want to recognize that this week is Suicide Prevention Week. With that, we did a proclamation yesterday in the courthouse. And I also want people to recognize that we are also having a fentanyl community action team meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. We're calling to action the community, much like we did with the suicides that we were dealing with about 10 years ago. Our suicide problem has not completely gone away, but that action team decreased the numbers and made a huge impact to our community. And that's what we're working to do with this community action team with our fentanyl crisis. We've lost a number of people due to overdose deaths. We have people overdosing in the community. We have a crisis that's happening, and one of the things that I've said about this is, you know, we teach our kids that seatbelts are vitally important, and it came to light for my daughter a while ago. And kids get in cars and they know to put on a seatbelt every time. I struggle with it myself, but teaching people early about the dangers of drugs has to happen. We've got to educate the kids about the dangers and let them know what the implications of these are. And so it should become like a seatbelt for them when they're tasked with having to face the challenges of drug addiction or being faced with using drugs. Got a great announcement this week. The EDA announced that we received our grant for the Silver Lake water system, a $3.06 million grant that will help us upgrade the Silver Lake water system. That's become a huge priority for us locally. Our system was, very aged out. It was not efficient. We had a hard time monitoring the water. All those things now are going to be able to be upgraded. Now, it won't fix the whole system, the piping and everything that goes along with it, but it'll fix the pumps at Silver Lake, a diversion dam up there, and then also the pumps at Ramsey. We'll be able to take that offline and work the pump station at Tiffin and just make a lot of improvements there. And then the telemetry that actually gives us the how much water we're using and indicators of where that is, and it'll make us a lot more efficient in the way we use the water from Silver Lake. So that was a huge announcement for us, and very proud of the work that all of the team members did to get this to the finish line. In particular, I want to thank Jim Cambridge, because he was on it all the time on this, and then with every one of the departments, Public Works, Community Development, planning, everybody working together on this to get it to the finish line. Also, I kind of wanted to address things that came out this last week in the paper. I want everyone to know that communication is always open in my office. I have never told people never to come into my office and talk to me. If there's ever an issue that there's a concern with anybody on this, commissioners, I have never rejected a meeting, closed the door, or turned anybody away from having those concerns. And so if there's ever any questions, please come to me and we can address any of the issues that you would like to talk about in the chief executive's room, or give me a call and we can discuss it. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that that is available for everybody here, and including the public. All right, I'm going to close out the chief executive's report, and I'm going to open up for any public comment on any item on the agenda tonight. If you want to speak on an item on the agenda, please state your name, address, and the item that you're going to speak on tonight. There's a button there. You see the red light? There you go.
Good evening. My name is Chris Harris, 820 West Galena. I'm here to speak on item 2022445. This is the letter from the Historic Preservation Commission. This is pretty outrageous, to be quite honest with you. The role and duties of the Historic Preservation Commission are firmly established. We're not dealing with any statutory violations here. CLG, broadly speaking, is a voluntary program through the National Park Service. It's administered by the State Historic Preservation Officer to facilitate cooperation with the federal government to promote preservation and associated initiatives. It is a voluntary program. I do work presently under preservation programs in 4 different states, many of which have opted out of certified local government. The idea that a preservation program requires certified local government to go forward and that there's some sort of statutory violation here is preposterous. It's just simply unequivocally false. Certified local government, I remember it well when it came out. I've been doing this work for 49 years. I remember it well when it came out. It was primarily to facilitate work on municipally owned buildings. Apparently here we have our own idea about how this is supposed to work, because our municipal buildings, which are the grandest buildings, the most high-style buildings in this town, go begging. They're in disrepair. It's horrible. Instead, certified local government is used by the authors of this letter to imply that there's been some sort of misconduct, largely due to decisions that they have found unfavorable. The Historic Preservation Commission is an advisory body. Much to their chagrin, I'm sure they'd love to be a statutory body. The only problem with that is the advice that they gave on the Blue Range was wrong. It wasn't legally tenable. Those are simple legal issues that should have been known of. And it never should have even got to this level, much less passed on provisionally. So the idea that there's some sort of knowledge here that we're missing in an advisory capacity, that hasn't been borne out either. They go on to try to make a case in this letter through 50 pages of attachments that by virtue of these attachments, their initial premise, certified local government isn't being adhered to, is somehow wrong. All that does is beg the question. This is ridiculous. I would urge this body and all people that are interested in preservation in Butte, Montana, to set an example and take care of our municipal buildings. Everything that they have cited in here, all 50...
Mr. Harris, just we're going to hold everyone to 3 minutes. You have 30 seconds left. Thank you.
Very well. Okay. Everything that's contained in here existed prior and still exists now. None of these examples prove anything. Let's please get this back on the center line, and let's get emotion out of this. In terms of the Blue Range, we're talking about private property. Private property and preservation is completely different than public property. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Chair.
Harris. Please state your name, address, and the item you'll speak on tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Brian McGregor, 133 South Main Street. I'm compelled to say some things that I know, and there's people in this room that can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are rules and conditions under the certified local government, and one of them is that you're supposed to have a historic preservation officer, supposed to have an ordinance, and one other thing. In any case, if these things aren't followed, then you are in conflict with your designation. And I know for a fact that Butte-Silver has, at least at one time, was under probation for not satisfying some of the requirements of that thing. So that being said, I come up to talk about 2022-4452, and I just wanted to come up because it's my experience that a lot of times, almost all the time when these things are discussed, major facts of these stories are circumvented and omitted in the discussions and the discourse. So I'd like to bring up a couple of these briefly. So hopefully, whether this is passed on to committee or whoever discusses this, does it with mindful of all of the facts, and especially the most important ones to me. I'll start with this, that the demolition of 135 East Park Street seemed to demonstrate that that wasn't as big and complicated a deal as it was made out to be. That's one. Two, there was a lot of big deal made about having to build a wall to support an existing building and all this kind of stuff. And the problem was expressed that it's too expensive to do that. But I happen to notice that when diesel fuel's at as high as it's ever been, money was no object to go tear down the two thrift store buildings. The other thing I want to bring up is in the discourse about those buildings and 135, this report was examined, it was taken apart, and it was demonstrated that it no way justified the demolition of those buildings. And these are the kind of things that as we, all right,
Mr. McRae, we got 30 seconds.
I got you. As we go forward, these are the kind of things that seem to go around. And I don't want to hear anybody say that they don't want to tear down buildings and that these things are, as if it's necessary and they have no choice. I hope that they'll be called out when and if that happens. And one more thing is the preservationists are right. They've been right for 30, 40 years, and these movie people here prove it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chief Executive, members of the board, my name is Jim Dolan. I reside at 315 West 4th in Anaconda. I'm here on item number 6, 2022-4044. I'm the author of the letter in the packet. I won't read from the letter. The letter's there for everybody to read. But I wanted to appear tonight just simply to reiterate that the conditions that I've been mentioning in the letter really are a blight, I think, on the city. It's just not right that people should have to incur these kinds of conditions, coming to work, trying to do business downtown. Tonight after work, I left the office about 5:15. Two of my colleagues are in the parking lot. They're looking up at the parking lot, and they're looking down at the ground. And what it is that somebody's thrown a syringe with a needle down onto the parking lot. I called the police. Officer Falang came by, collected the needle. I told him I was concerned about the health issue. So that's the third needle I've found in addition to the two that are mentioned in my letter. So I've, proposed a few things. I was a city attorney, so normally I'm on the brunt of things. It's kind of a reverse thing for me, but I'm here because I really do care about this situation. It's not right. There are too many good people in Butte, and I'm not a Butte resident, but I work here. I care about what's going on. It seems to me what's going on is you've got a bunch of people that have taken over a public finance structure, and I'm assuming there's probably a budget for that, budget for maintenance, budget for upkeep. Maybe that needs to be looked into. Maybe we need some cameras, maybe we need some patrols, I don't know. That's really all I have, and I'll yield my time to other folks here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Please come forward, state your name, address, and the item you'll be speaking on tonight.
John Slickemeyer, 2715 Goodwin. I'm here to speak on 2022444. That would be the Park Street parking garage. This is not a new issue. We've had this discussion has been brought up several times in the Parking Commission meetings, yet we cannot get the minutes for those meetings. Not only that, of all the problems that the other people that work in that area have had, at one time we had the police department basically sitting there like they did when we had the nuisance issue down by my house. This is far from a new, as it sits right now, Butte-Silver with the parking garage is in violation of its own ordinance, its own nuisance ordinance under 814. And needs to be abated. It's up to you guys to make that decision what you're going to do. Because otherwise, Butte-Silver, the citizens have that ability to do that also. And that means closing the parking garage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slickmeyer. Do we have any other public comment on any item on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move back to Section 1 consent agenda, A 1 through 4 and B 1 through 28. Do we have any friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I would like to segregate number 6, 2022-444, and number 7, 2022-445. Thank you.
That's communication number 2022-444 and communication number 2022-445. Are there any other segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve Section 1, consent agenda A 1 through 4, and B 1 through 28, with the exception of item 6, 22-444, and item 7, 22-445.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving to item number 6, communication number 2022-444, James Dolan, 315 West 4th Street, Anaconda, Montana, requesting council commissioners to address the general decline in the condition of the parking structure located on West Park Street. The municipal parking structure on West Park Street needs some serious attention before someone becomes sick and or injured by the physical conditions that appear to be currently unabated and or tolerated there. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I feel the need when someone comes before this commission to some way answer some of their questions without referring this to another committee or to a committee of the whole. So the reason I segregated this is I truly feel that Mr. Dolan has brought to attention of many people what many of us have seen, what's going on in the parking garage. And I do think that we need to do something, whether it be the same people that are doing security for our parks and things like that, to maybe hire, maybe we gotta spend a little money there to clean up that area and get it done. So I just like to thank Mr. Dolan for bringing that to our attention. I think that the people that work for Butte-Silver Bow will take this seriously and gather a little bit of information and clean that up the way it's supposed to be, and you know, maybe get some security there that we need. I'm not sure cameras is the answer, but security seems to be an answer. So with that being said, I would recommend to refer this to committee of the whole as recommended by Council Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Commissioner Fisher, the original communication was to be referred to the government buildings manager. Okay, just not going to the committee hall. Thank you.
Would you like to change your motion?
Thank you, Chairman Shaw. Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I was one ahead of my step there. I would like to have this referred to Government Buildings Department, and I'm sure they will take this issue seriously. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I'd just like to add some comment. We did have a meeting this last week about this issue itself. We met with government buildings, community development, community enrichment. We met with Public Works, Parks Department, all of which that are involved in what we're going to do at the structure there with the parking garage. We know of the issues that we had. I know that Parks Department already had, they were down there power washing the area because we do have issues with people that have used that as their bathroom on the outside and inside, and there's things that are unsavory that happen in that parking garage. We are working with the Sheriff's Department to work on patrols going through there more often, and we're talking about what we need to do as far as security as we move forward and make changes there as well. So that this has already got our attention. I appreciate the communication by Mr. Dolan, and we are addressing those issues. And so even before it was referred to the government buildings, we were already working on it a little bit, but this brings a reminder of the need for us to get that done. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there anything else on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to number 7, communication number 2022-445, Butte-Silver Bow Historic Preservation Commission requesting Council of Commissioners use its power to ensure that Butte-Silver Bow and the URA Board diligently follow the Historic Preservation Ordinance and include HPC and Historic Preservation Officer in a meaningful and timely consideration of future BSB projects and policies. More immediately, we request that the URA Board justify to the Council its blatant disregard for a BSB ordinance that has been on the books for 8 years. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Same reason I segregated this is we did hear from a couple different sides of the story on this historic preservation, and I do appreciate the HPC Commission bringing this to our attention. But we, as the Council of Commissioners, have no power to tell the Historic Preservation Officer or anyone that works for the county government. We're the legislative branch of government, and any direction that should be coordinated towards Historic Preservation Officer or URA Board or things like that would come, I feel, from the executive branch, not so much from the legislative branch. We have been through this many times. I think Cindy's been here for 16 years. I've been here for 10 years or something, you know. We've went through historic preservation ordinances. We've changed things. We've met. I mean, it's a very contentious issue, and we're well split on the issue, many of us. But the thing about it is, as far as someone to ask the council to use their power to ensure that Butte-Silver Bow and the URA Board diligently follows the historic preservation ordinance, that is not the job of the Council of Commissioners as I see it. We set policy, we don't enforce policy. And to include the Historic Preservation Officer in meaningful and timely consideration from future projects and policies, I think that comes from the discussion we're having over there where the buildings were removed, and I think it looks great over there. But in this request, I don't see, unless there is something to be changed legislatively where the commissioners have any authority to direct anyone to do anything, whether it be the URA or the Historic Preservation Officer or whatever. So I'd like to open conversation on that rather than referring to the committee of the whole and see what everyone else has to say. And if it should be referred to the committee of the whole for more conversation, that could be. But I think right now, with people showing up, we should maybe visit about it a little bit tonight. So I'm going to leave that open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Any other? Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Commissioner Fisher, for your points. I see Missy Resilient is in the audience. She's the vice chair of the HPC. I understand this letter was a coordinated effort from the entire board, but I would have an opportunity to call on Missy, and she can give us a little bit of a little more information possibly, or open up for questions to her. I do want to say one thing, that we are the legislative branch. These are our ordinances, and I think that I'd have to call on the county attorney, but I do believe that we have some reason to be able to have some action, possibly some discussion at the committee of the whole, without putting the kibosh on this, because we are the legislative branch. These are our ordinances. So,
Commissioner Shaw, would you like us to bring Ms. Resilient up first, or would you like the county attorney to answer your question?
I was just commenting, Commissioner Fisher, about the fact that, well, anyway, that sounds like a plan. We'll just have Missy come up first, and we can call on county attorney.
Ms. Resilient.
That would be my request.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Mitzi Resilient. I reside at 815 West Granite, and I'm the vice chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. The Historic Preservation Commission felt compelled to make a statement, and we didn't want to be a voice crying in the wilderness. We wanted to have an audience of someone that we thought that should know that there were some problems with the way that the Historic Preservation Commission has, their role has been played down in this community, and particularly with Butte-Silver Bow staff. And this was the mechanism that we chose to do it. So if, in fact, the council can't do anything about it, we've accomplished what we wanted to do, and that is to let people know that historic preservation is, by ordinance, by our, by various documents that have been produced, is an integral part of the operations of Butte-Silver Bow government, or at least it is supposed to be. And so we want that role to be much larger than it is now. It is, historic preservation is considered an afterthought by some departments. We want it to be an integral part of planning, just as it is for state and federal governments. We think it is appropriate for local government, and why? One, because we have the largest historic landmark district in the United States of America. As Butte likes to say, we're number one. And secondly, we have, despite what one of the commenters said, we have our own statutes, which are called ordinances, that compel us to include consideration of historic buildings early on in a process and not at the very end when everything has been settled. So I don't know if you have specific questions, but that's just kind of in general how, where the Historic Preservation Commission is coming from in this particular communication.
Thank you, Mrs. Resilient. Is there any other comments of commissioners? Commissioner O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Sorry there, wrong button, I guess. Hey, appreciate the conversation. So one of the things that always comes up where being in the commission since I've been on here, where we get in the hot seat, is where the historic preservation, it does feel like sometimes sitting in this seat that it is like, okay, oh my gosh, the building's being torn down, then it comes to us. So with that being said, like, I obviously I didn't read through the whole deal, but
I guess I'm going to throw it back at the historic preservation to whatever steps they need to take to, and I'm not going to say do a better job, because that is not true. That's not where I'm going. But where in them steps, like let's bring up the Blue Range. Like I never heard anything about, I didn't even know what the Blue Range was until they're going to tear it down, to be honest with you. That's kind of embarrassing to say, but I knew it was just a cool blue building, okay? So, and I don't know where your executive director is right now. Like, I feel like if this is such an important thing for the HPC, it's not, I'm not trying to throw stones here, because I do respect the hard work you guys do, but however, I feel like this communication's coming to have you guys have something being taken care of. I don't know what the step is that you guys, as a board, need to rise to get more power. Again, I hate to say do a better job, because that's really downplaying that. But again, I've been on the commission I'm at the end of my term right now, and every time a building's been tore down, I don't hear about it, like the process, until it, like, oh my God, now the building's being torn down. What are we going to do? I don't know what the steps happened before. I don't know what HPCs does prior to that. And maybe I'm going off on kind of a tangent, because I want to talk out of both sides of my mouth here, because whatever needs to happen, God knows I don't know what it is, and we're just obviously having a conversation, but there's a hole missing somewhere, and it can't just be put on Butte-Silver Bow, the governing body. Like, whoever's plan is, there's a miscommunication somewhere. Like, it's not just like as Mr. Fisher says, we're the legislative branch, but we're here to fire up and complain and do whatever we can. But I guess with that being said, like, I guess the conversation needs to keep rolling and keep her going. I don't know. I'm done blabbing. Appreciate your time, though.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Neill. Is any commissioners have any other? Commissioner Fisher and then Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Mitzi, for being here. And I think there's two things I got out of your conversation with this is, one, you got the point across, by coming here and sending that letter, you got the attention the HPC wanted, and I think you got it. The other thing is you stated that you think the HPC should have, or the Historic Preservation Committee should have a little more authority and power. That is something I have a tough time agreeing with, because, as you know, you've been here as long as I have. When we've met in the Judiciary Committee to rewrite ordinances and resolutions, we've had weeks and months of input from both sides of the story. And every time we tried to find middle ground, there was somebody who had to give up a little and the other had to give a little. So I think at this point, if there's more that has to be done on your behalf or on our behalf, I think we've got to go back and redline the resolution of the ordinance and see what's got to be done. We no way, as I'll restate, as commissioners, can wave a magic wand and give HPC more authority, more power, or give the Historic Preservation Officer, Butte-Silver Bow, any direction whatsoever. That's the executive branch. I do thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I don't really have any questions. I just have some input here. And there again, this is my first term as commissioner and all that. And after the Blue Range incident and all that, Chief Executive Gallagher asked me to be on the Historic Preservation Committee. And we sat down and had a nice talk, and I thought, is basically the agreement we come to is after these difficulties, we were going to try to make this better, okay? Not everybody knows me. I'm kind of a go-getter and all that stuff, and basically do a lot of research in that. I guess what my question is, and putting it out there, is the facting that there are ordinances. We did go through I was part of the Blue Range, and now this incident that we had down, the controversy and stuff like that. And I think that the HPC, I've been around and all that, is the fact that they have Butte's interest in historical preservation at their best interest. We had a meeting last night in this room that basically covered preservation, jobs, things like that. All these people are pretty dedicated. I realize that these committees are advisory committees, but also associated with these advisory committees are ordinances and procedures that are to be followed through the process that basically haven't been followed. And I think it's a great concern not only to the people in this room, but also the people that are being active part of what's going on. And I think that could sit down and talk to anybody, but basically we haven't been part of this. Nobody in this room can say that there hasn't been a problem in the previous months over this deal. I'm not throwing this at anybody and all that. I don't know, I'm going to ask a question around this room. Does anybody know what the deal is? Who owns the building? What's going on with the demolition? Who's going to pay the demolition? I don't. And I would ask anybody if they do, please tell us. It'd be great to know.
Commissioner Reardon, I can answer that question for you.
Okay.
Yeah, the demolition of the building has been paid for by Butte-Silver because if you go back to our discussions where we were at before, that it was a dangerous building that was turned, that the rescue mission said that they were not able to abate that building. So they were going to turn that back to us at that time, because then the clock stopped ticking at that time. I can tell you I gave the order, and I didn't bring it back to this body for numerous reasons, because we had discussion about tearing down the buildings. We gave the option of an MOU to tear down the buildings and give the rescue mission money. Then we came back to you. That was denied. We came back to you. The only thing that this body needed to do was accept the property if it was tear down, and they accepted the $35,000, and we were going to accept the property. That was denied. We came back to this body to shore up a wall so that we could tear down 135 and then leave that building so that it could possibly be abated. That was denied. I was left with no other alternative but have another dangerous building on the Butte-Silver taxpayers' rolls. I was not going to sit on another building. I've had, we have people come in here, and we've had a number of people say this in here, that so many people are upset. I've had way more conversations with people in the community, and I'll bet you the commissioners too, saying that that was the best thing that was done with those buildings. Now, the question that's going forward here, I called the chairman of the HPC today about the letter that was done here. I caution this group, HPC, to be accusatory towards another committee when you have a volunteer board that you're sitting there saying does not follow what Butte-Silver ordinances are. I caution the HPC with their words. When I talked to the chairman of HPC, he said he asked for that to be redacted, and it was not before it was submitted. So we have some issues here. We have some issues in communication, and I apologize if commissioners feel like they were slighted. But this was brought to this body numerous times. And for anybody to say in here they didn't know what was going on, we had planning department stand up here, and we talked about dangerous buildings. Dangerous buildings ordinance allows not to go to HPC, and there's a reason for that. Safety exclusion was the first part that we put into this, that we enacted the safety exclusion because the rescue mission was working with us to try to abate the problem. When they weren't able to abate the problem, then we had to deem it as a dangerous building, if you guys remember that. So we deemed it a dangerous building. They came back to us and they said, we're not going to be able to abate this, and we don't want to sell to the one person that was offering, the only one person. Everyone says there's numerous people that are lined up to buy these buildings. There was one offer on that building. There was one offer. That was it. People were not coming out of the woodwork to take that building on. So I just want people to remember the history of how things went along there. To say that you were not communicated with, I disagree with. I disagree. So with that, Commissioner Reardon.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I believe, I just said what I believe, and I think that this is the first time I've heard the way we actually heard who paid for this demolition. We're past that now. We're in another chapter. But the scenario that we have right now is everybody around this table in this room represents the taxpayers. So here we are now with a $177,000 debt that basically nobody knew about till basically I was informed. Maybe I missed something, maybe I should ask more questions, but I thought maybe it'd just be a professional courtesy to basically find out what's going on with these buildings. These controversies and all that, and as I stated months ago, as Mr. Gallagher said, this has been a controversy. One of my comments, and it's on record, not once but numerous times, is basically why don't we just sit down among us and hash this out and find out where everybody's on the same page. But I'm not trying to trample anybody or make anybody look bad. Here we go again, this procedure. We have these committees, it's good one time, this ordinance is good one time, this one isn't good and all that. We have to come up with a scenario where everybody knows where everybody's headed. And I think that that's the biggest issue. And I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know how you other people feel. Maybe I'm out of sorts here and all that, but I don't believe I am. These are questions that the people and everybody talks to public. JP probably gets most of them and all that, but we get a lot of it too. I have phone calls, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. I don't want no more controversy. But I think that we can do a hell of a lot better job than we're doing now. That's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. And then I think we were going to go to County Attorney Joyce on the question that Commissioner Shaw had for you. Do we need to, do you want to re-ask the question? We kind of went into a lot more conversation.
I think County Attorney Joyce knows what I was asking. Thank you.
County Attorney Joyce.
Mr. Chief Executive, Commissioner Shaw, if the question is in regard to the council's ability to act regarding this communication and its, I guess, supervision or control over the URA activities, there is the URA was established by ordinance, and it does reference that they have the powers that are set forth in state law, and the URA statutes in state law basically say that a municipality, there's a section that says a municipality may exercise its urban renewal project powers, let's see, by the local government itself, I think it says, defined, or may, if the local government body by resolution determines such action to be in the public interest, elect to have such powers exercised by an urban renewal agency created by 7/15/42/32. So that is what Butte-Silver has done. We've determined to establish an urban revitalization agency by ordinance, and so they are the ones that have the power to enforce and develop the urban renewal projects and all the funding and all that, and they don't come back to the council for their decisions because the council has delegated that authority to the URA. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, County Attorney Joyce. Commissioner Fisher.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Thank you, Commissioner Reardon. But all due respect, let's not use the tax word so vagrantly around here as we do. There's things on the agenda every week that cost the taxpayers a lot more than demolition of them buildings. I mean, we can go back and talk about a lot of different things about taxes. I mean, if you look today on the agenda alone, if you add up one on there, there's about $300,000 or $400,000 worth of projects going on. No one's questioned any of them. Nothing about them. So my recommendation is read the ordinances, follow their ordinances. If you don't like them, put in a communication, send it through judiciary, get a resolution, redline it, and change it. And the other thing is let's quit talking about the Blue Range and them buildings. They're gone. Let's not try to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's over. Let's look out the windshield and quit looking out the rearview mirror. I mean, if somebody's still sore about losing a vote or something, that is the way politics work. Maybe that's the way the country's working now. Maybe that's the way we're in this situation we're in. But damn it, we need to start working together in the same direction. It does no good when you have 4 or 5 pulling one way and 4 or 5 pulling the other way and another 2 sitting on the fence. That isn't the way government works. I just ask that we start looking forward, and when things are done and over with, let's move on to the next subject. This thing that's going on now and that article in the Standard was very disappointing for me to read. I think there was other ways to go about it. I think that the chief executive has an open door, and I think it's time to move on and see what can happen there. I think before anything's built on any property, we're gonna find out what it is, and we're gonna have a decision to make here again. But to relive what's happened in the past and done and over with, to me, that's a waste of time. So with that being said, I would make a motion at this time that we note and place communication 2022-445 on file. Thank you.
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief
Oh.
Executive.
Okay, well,
I'd just like to make some comments. I guess
okay, we
one
gotta
of-
have a second first. Okay,
I-
Commissioner Fortune, second. Okay,
I guess my question is, what right does Butte-Silver Bow have to step in and stop a private sale on a building we have no rights to? I guess that comment was made tonight, that that's what we did.
Commissioner Callahan, we did not step in and stop any sale from that. That was the rescue mission's right to sell that building or not sell that building. Butte-Silver Bow did not stop any sale of that building. They rejected the offer from the person that offered them that money. The rescue mission did. They still own the property. They continue to own the property. They have not transferred ownership of that. We together are marketing that to make it a more developable property. That is what we're doing together. But right now, we do not own that property. We own 135, and that is the only property that we own. So for anyone to say that we stopped that sale is not true, and that's not factual at all. The rescue mission rejected that offer, and I can tell you a number of reasons why. Because the purchaser was asking questions about what they were going to get in insurance money, what liability, other things were going to happen among that. So they had reservations about what that purchase was going to be. So that was their decision alone to not sell that property, because they figured that it could become a liability if they sold it to the person that offered them that money.
Okay, I just thought I heard you say earlier that we stopped the sale because we didn't approve who the purchaser was.
No, we did not stop the sale. And if that was perceived as that's incorrect.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Now, I just wanted to make some comments to Mitzi. And Mitzi, I appreciate you coming up here tonight, and this has been extremely contentious. And I appreciate all the hard work you do for the HPC and everything. And I think your goal here tonight is that we start abiding by the rules of the historic district that Butte-Silver adopted many, many years ago. And what I've seen since I've been on this council, as we keep skirting around the back door. And I can point out certain pictures, I can show you situations, I can explain who was the one that did it. I don't want to do that tonight. We're not here to do that. I think you guys are here to ask that we start going by the rules that was agreed on to be an historic district. And I believe that's what you guys are asking here tonight. And I think everybody involved would like to see that. You know, the URA board, they have some authority, but they still should have rules. You know, to turn around and tell us, and I was at a meeting, and I can be specific if you need me to, and they had one bidder. And they were told that this guy is a respectable contractor in town. The URA gave them money for that contractor to do the job. That contractor never once stepped foot on that property. The owners did the work. The URA didn't step in and say, no, wait a minute, this wasn't our agreement. And then there was other things that happened that the URA board didn't step in and say, what are you doing here? This is taxpayers' money. Jim says we shouldn't be talking about taxpayers. The URA is taxpayers' money. And the people that put into these funds, they want it spent correctly. They don't want people just saying, well, you know, so-and-so needs the money, so I'm going to give it to them. If you sign a contract and say, you're hiring this contractor, I questioned that day at that meeting and says, we as a council are required to get 3 bids. They said, well, we respect this guy and we've had lots of work done with this guy. That contractor never once did any work on that building. Property owner and the purchase did the work on the building, and the URA still gave them their money. And then the URA has turned around and given more money on top of that, when some of the things they did was horrific. And one day I'll sit down with the chief executive and I'll point this stuff out. I've pointed it out to numerous people on this committee. This stuff has to be changed. It has to be changed. We have to fix the way things are being done. We as a council can't be getting beat up every time one of these things happen. We get it slammed in the paper, we get slammed on the news. It has to be fixed, and I believe that's what you're here to do tonight, to figure out what we have to do to start having them go by the URA rules, to start going by the historic preservation rules. We are the largest historic district in the United States, and because of the last 3 projects, we could lose that designation because of the things that have gone on. And it's time to figure out what's going on, and let's fix it. And I appreciate you guys putting the communication in to bring it to their attention. Something has to be done. And I will be more than glad to sit down with the chief executive and the URA director, and we can discuss these things.
Thank you, Commissioner Callahan. Is there any other discussion? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Just a couple of things, if you'll indulge me to ramble. There won't ever be a time that the media contacts me for a comment that I'll say no comment. There just won't be. So if there's anybody upset with the paper writing a story, I would definitely take that up with the publisher. But when I'm contacted for a comment, I have an obligation to comment on my votes. I have an obligation to comment on my opinions, and I do that. And that's what I did in the newspaper. And as I stated in the newspaper, I don't want to make any enemies because we all need to work together. And I know you feel that, and I know we all feel that. As far as Commissioner Fisher, we don't always agree on things, but this is one thing we agree on. I think that the things that we're dredging up right now are very painful. They were very, very difficult to go through. They were hard for the community. They were hard on historic preservation. They were hard on people like me who sat outside those buildings and cried, feeling that I was losing a piece of my town. And I'm not the only one. And I do hear more comments from people who wish they were still standing than think that they were better torn down. That is neither here nor there. That is water under the bridge. Right now we need to make lemonade from lemons. I did a little bit of back work, and I reached out to some real estate people and got some comps on that property. The comp that they gave me, while they said they would not guarantee it, was $130,000. And in my opinion, that's where our minimum should have been set for any developer that wanted to come in. That gets us a lot closer to making the taxpayers whole for what it cost for us to tear down not only 135, which is our property, but 123 and 125, which aren't our property, which don't belong to the taxpayers. That was for the benefit of a private company. And that is where my rub is coming in at this point. So I would like to see the taxpayers at least made whole or as close to it as we can get. And yes, I did have issues with the transparency of this. I've not seen an RFP be opened at noon in the chief executive's office. I've never heard of that. And I'm still trying to wonder why. And why, if it was felt that that needed to be kept from the council, why was there no proactive communication from the executive branch to the council to say, look, we want to open this in private and here's why. We don't do things in private here. Everything we do is public. So yeah, I know there are some confidentiality things, but it's unusual. And if it's not unusual, I would like somebody to tell me, where's the line? What is the line? What is the deciding factor in that?
Commissioner Shea, I can address that right now. I can tell you that we've had numerous, and I mean numerous, we have more RFPs that are opened away from the commissioners than are ever opened here. The para-tailings was not opened here. The Stodden Park master plan was not opened here. There was no commissioners involved in any of those as we went along there. So there's more RFPs. You see sealed bids opened here more than you do RFPs. RFPs and RFQs are routinely opened in the department offices, and then we look at them, we send them to committee, then we bring them back to this body for your concurrence on those. So to say that they don't happen, there's more that happen than ever don't happen here. And I know that part of this is how public it is, and I do appreciate when you say that when the press calls, you're going to speak to them. I agree with that. The thing that I would address, though, is the press came to me and said, these are the questions that the commissioners have of you. That I have issue with when the commissioners have the ability to walk into my office at any time and talk to me. I don't ever want to say that I've done everything perfectly, but if there's an issue that something happened out there, my door has always been open, and I answer my phone to anybody at any time. They call me day, they call me night, and I answer the phone. And we've got tough jobs here, all of us, every one of us here. So, but I just want to address that RFPs do routinely get opened outside of the commission.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I appreciate that. I appreciate the explanation. I guess I just am not, maybe I'm just not paying attention enough, or maybe I need to pay attention more so more are opened here. I'm not sure. But I lost my train of thought now.
Sorry.
With your great explanation. But I do think that, you know, at this point, I will go back to the lemons out of lemonade, or lemonade out of lemons. We have to look forward. I agree. I love Commissioner Fisher's idea that, you know, if we want to see change, we need to bring forward a red line ordinance, and we need to make changes. I know that when that dangerous buildings ordinance was passed, it was passed by the skin of its teeth. There were a lot of us that had big concerns that this was how it would eventually play out down the road, with a lot of pain and a lot of struggle. And it might be time for us to maybe just take a slight look backwards and see if we can't take some of the pain points out of that. That being said, I do appreciate our executive staff. I do appreciate all of the volunteer boards, because, you know, if you're willing to throw your hat in the ring, your name on the line, put your reputation on the line, get everywhere that you out in the public eye, that takes courage. And I know that some people don't appreciate that and might roll their eyes at that, but it's true. So thank you.
thank you, Commissioner Shea. Commissioner Sorge, and then Commissioner Thatcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. You know, in my mind, in my humble opinion, I guess we took a negative. Those buildings they were in tough shape. They were ready to fall down. The roofs were falling down. Yes, we did have some bids. We had some real discussions. I'm going to be short and sweet. We took a negative, and it's going to be a positive. You know, we're going to move it up, and we're going to make something better out of it. We no longer have a safety hazard. That was the whole issue, was the safety hazard. I don't think we bypassed anything. I don't think anything was because it was a safety issue. You know, so I think there's going to be something positive that's going to come out of this whole thing. I think we just got to move forward. In saying that, I'm going to call for the question.
We've called for the question. So we take the vote. So could commissioners please vote?
To vote for what?
To vote to call for the, no. Now I got it. Yeah, to note and place on file, that was, okay. Sorry, I had to get reminded. To note and place on file. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? And, okay, and so, any further comment? And I have Commissioner Thatcher to have some further comment here before we vote. Is there any other comment? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I guess mine is just a logistical question. What is the goal of referring it to the committee of the whole? I feel like something like this, we just normally note and place on file anyway. So I guess I was just wondering with Cindy, what you wanted out of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Thatcher. Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thanks, Commissioner Thatcher. It's a good question. I wasn't sure what exactly was going to come out of this, and sending it to committee of the whole was an opportunity to sit down, have a week to think about it as council members, have the people that were wanting to speak have an opportunity. Sometimes when it's just segregated and, you know, it's a bit of a a spur of the moment kind of a thing where somebody has to come to the microphone. I've always been about taking the time to just think it out, do your homework, ask questions in advance. It's just my style, and then have it come before the committee of the whole. But that was the only reason. Okay?
Commissioner Callahan.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I'd like to make a substitute motion to send it to the committee of the whole.
So we have a substitute motion to send to the committee of the whole.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there anything else on the question? Any other discussion? So this, we'll have to cancel that first vote, I believe. And so this is a substitute motion to send to the committee of the whole. Okay. Sure. Just give us a minute here. It was my rush to judgment. Yeah, I just did.
Oh, so for the second.
Yeah, on the second one. Okay, are we okay? Clerk, are we okay to vote?
This is for committee of the whole.
This is to send it to the committee of the whole. So just so everyone understands, this is to send to the committee of the whole. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
4 yea, 7 nay.
4 yea, 7 nay, motion fails. We'll go back to the original motion to note and place on file.
Just give me 1 second.
Is there anything on the question before we vote? Could commissioners please vote?
Just give me 1 second.
Oh, sorry, my fault. I gotta give you time. Good.
All the parts.
Now, could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
8 yea, 3 nay.
8 yea, 3 nay, motion passes. All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda. Move on to Section 2, ordinances and resolutions introduced to judiciary. We have 2 that will be there, resolution number, or 3 I should say, number 2022-65, 2022-66, and 2022-67. Please note those. Next, we'll move on to Section 3, ordinances and resolutions for second reading. Clerk, please read the caption.
Council Bill number 2022-12, ordinance number 2022-12. An ordinance amending Title 15 of the Butte-Silver Municipal Code, BSB, MC, entitled Buildings and Construction, amending Chapter 1504, entitled Building Code, amending Chapter 1505, entitled International Energy Conservation Code, amending Chapter 1507, entitled International Existing Building Code, amending Chapter 1512, entitled Sign Code, amending Chapter 1514, entitled Mechanical Code, amending Chapter 1515, entitled International Fuel Gas Code, amending Chapter 1516, entitled Plumbing Code, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. This time, I move to place Council Bill number 2022-12, ordinance number 2022-12 on second reading and passed, having been fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass Council Bill number 2022-12 and ordinance number 2022-12 on second reading. Is there anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And whoops, got a couple, sorry. And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Please note any of the calendar and other meeting events that we have coming forward. And next, I will take any public comment on any item that was not listed on the agenda tonight. If you have any comment on any item not listed on the agenda tonight, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all for the great discussion tonight.